Mic Drop Moments is sponsored by Grow Radio. Want to launch your own podcast? Grow Radio are here to help. Grow Radio has launched and supported countless podcasts, and they'd love to do the same for you. Just hit record and they'll handle the rest. No editing stress, no technical faff, just a great podcast released when you want. Need a little extra support? Grow Radio's workshops and courses make getting started easy. Let's bring your podcast to life. Message Grow Radio on social media or reach out to Gary Jones, the founder of Grow Radio. Let's make this happen. Welcome to Mic Drop Moments, and today I've got the amazing Kaylee Greenacre with me. We're going to have the most amazing conversation, and I'm going to let you introduce yourself, Kaylee, because you will do it far better than me.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me as well. I'm really excited to be here. But yes, I'm Kaylee Greenacre. I am an award-winning global business strategist and also an Evergreen sales expert. And I basically support female entrepreneurs to become iconic leaders in their industry so that they can sell on repeat using Evergreen ecosystems and strategies.
And we're going to be digging into that in a little while. But first, I want to know, I love the backstories. I love the stories about how people got to where they are today. So tell me your backstory. Start wherever you like.
Oh, of course. I'll try to keep this as condensed and short as possible. As everyone's story always has a lot of depth to it. So basically, my background is actually in education. So I used to be an assistant head teacher. So I've been teaching for a very long time, since the age of 22. And I've always had a passion for supporting, for helping, for teaching people. Ultimately anything. But, you know, in the education sector, I was kind of music, art, dance, drama, you name it, sport, all of the fun subjects. And sort of gradually, I worked my way up the ladder very, very quickly. And gradually over time, I sort of found my, I'm going to say, love and passion for coaching. So I became a coach very, very quickly as well in the education space. And I supported an awful lot of leaders and senior leaders in schools to, again, really believe in themselves, to understand what they needed to do in order to, whether it's better themselves in their job, in their career, or whether it's to support them with X, Y, and Z, whatever that looked like. And I really, really found the passion for coaching. I absolutely loved it. So I had a really, really kind of hard time sort of towards the end of my 20s into my 30s. And COVID hit as well, which we all know was a challenging time for so many people of different reasons. And during that time, I kind of had like a massive realization moment. I went through a divorce. We had to sell our house. It was in the middle of COVID. It was very, very hard, very challenging. And I had this kind of like massive realization, I think, of, you know, there's got to be more. I want to give more. I want to impact more people. I want to support and help. And I really had this kind of, again, urge to do something bigger, to do something, you know, even better and get out of the education system. So that's when I decided to actually write a book. And that was called Actually I Can, all about growth mindset and believing in yourself. And I think through all of my challenging times, I thought this is the perfect time to write it and to help people. And then it kind of stemmed into one thing to another. And then decided actually this is far more than a book. This is going to actually become a movement, become a business and a movement to support people. And I gradually sort of developed that business, that movement idea to help women, and specifically to then help female entrepreneurs in, yes, their mindset, but also then developing a business for themselves and following their own dream, following their own passion. I'd also been an entrepreneur since the age of 25 as well. So I hadn't just literally decided I'm going to coach people in business. You know, I actually had my own business for a long time as well anyway. But yeah, that's kind of how it stemmed. And then obviously it's progressively grown very, very quickly over the last sort of 5 years. And now I support thousands of people, thousands of women to build their dream and ultimately to build an evergreen ecosystem to help them build, grow, and then scale their businesses.
And this is the perfect moment to ask you. So for any listeners that don't really understand what an evergreen system is, so it's not, you don't sort of go quiet and then launch and then have a big sort of fanfare around something and then launch it and then you wait so many months and then you come back and do it again. Evergreen means it's on tap. So you tell us what an evergreen system, ecosystem looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's exactly right. So Evergreen is ultimately something that you can sell 365 days a year, if you're looking at your products or your services. And the idea of an ecosystem, and this is something that I truly believe every business should have. It's an ecosystem that will work around the clock for you 365 days a year. I'm not saying that this is completely passive, and this is where a lot of people do get it wrong. I think there's a lot of missold dreams and all sorts out there online, and has been for many years. But the ecosystem is meant to be quite simply a system with lots of different elements to it that all work simultaneously together. So, the easiest way to describe this, and this is where I start with many of my clients that are new to it, is start by building the central, let's call it a funnel, because everyone knows what a funnel
Yeah.
is, a central funnel of that ecosystem. And that's got to be the main part of that ecosystem. It's like the backbone. It's ultimately the spine of your business. And the idea is that you're taking people through that, let's call it a funnel, to obviously getting from awareness stage, which is at the very top, all the way through to obviously conversion, which is the sale. And the idea is that that's your spine, that's your backbone of your business, that's the core offer that you lead people to through the top of the funnel, so through that awareness stage. And then as an ecosystem gradually builds, so what we then want to do is add in different elements of how we can bring more people into the awareness stage. What other offers can we build in? Can we cross sell? Can we upsell? Can we downsell? And gradually you will build this ecosystem that supports you and helps you quite simply bring in leads 365 days a year, and obviously making sales consistently, depending on what your business model is. That might be daily, it might be weekly, it might be monthly. But the idea is that it all works together and makes your life so much easier.
And that's what we want. But I want to make it really clear here, and you said it's semi-passive because you have to put the work in and build it first. It's not just a switch it on and off you go, and then you go off on a holiday and forget about it. People get really confused about this. You still have to put in the work, don't you, to make it work?
100%. And that's it, like I mentioned earlier, I think there's so many misconceptions around again building businesses and just making it completely passive and jetting off all over the world and not doing any work or doing an hour a day. It's not the case. Yes, you've got to put in the work at the beginning. And to be honest with you, a lot of it is all about testing as well, just like it is in any part of business. Something that I truly believe in terms of business is it's a numbers game, and you've got to know your data, you've got to know your numbers. If you don't, then you're going to struggle to obviously grow, you know, in terms of that stability, but also to progress moving forward. So it's the same with ecosystem. And when you're building that, you've got to test the different elements. And that's why we always start with like the stem, the backbone of the business, which is basically that kind of core funnel running through. Once we've got that working, we then want to amplify it. So then we might bring in, podcasts, we might bring in ads, we might bring in another offer, which is like kind of like a sister offer, and we can cross sell them or downsell. There's multiple things that we can do. And I know you know this anyway, but it's such a great thing to be able to do. But you have to do the work first, and you've got to be willing to test, because one thing that I would say is my Evergreen ecosystem works fantastically, but it's taken me a good amount of time to really test all of the different cogs and actually get it all working together. But it might not work for someone else in a different industry. So we've got to test things, we've got to make things or see how things work for us, for our communities, for our ideal clients, so that we can then really strategically grow that and obviously amplify it as it starts to work.
Yeah. And I think these things build momentum over time as well. So you start off, it's not going to happen on day one. And I
No.
think that, we need to make that clear, because an evergreen system, as you say, takes time to build. You've got to put all the things in place. You've got to test it. You might add other things in, you should say upsells, downsells, but it's like one of those things you've constantly got to be filling the top of the funnel for this to work. So, it's like one of those, I call it like a big ball of snow that rolls down a hill. It will gather, momentum as it goes. What would you say to anybody that's maybe burnt themselves out trying to sell traditionally and is thinking of going evergreen? Because we're hearing a lot about things not being the same as they were 2 years ago, and the pandemic was that golden moment. Everybody went online, there was opportunity, and things have changed. The economy is all over the place. So what would you say to somebody that's thinking of moving to an evergreen system now? Is it a good time to do it, or is it still gonna they're still gonna have to put the work in, but is it a good time to do it?
Yeah, so I definitely think it's a really good time to absolutely to go for it and to, transfer over. I mean, I always say, well, a lot of people come to me because they're sick of launching and they're kind of exhausted of it, because it's tiring, it's hard work, right? But as is any business, again, I don't want to paint this beautiful, pretty picture of, okay, if you build an evergreen ecosystem, it's going to be easy, because it's not, you know, but it works in a different way than launching, and it's a really good way to have that consistency. And I think that's probably the key thing. If you're sort of listening to this and thinking, oh, okay, I'm quite interested in this evergreen concept. And I think if you are in a position where launches kind of maybe are exhausting you, or you haven't enjoyed doing them. So that was my key thing back in 2021. I did not enjoy launching. And it's nothing against launching. It didn't suit me. And I was a single mum at the time. I was working full time as well. It just didn't suit my lifestyle. It didn't suit it. So I introduced Evergreen in January 2022. It was the best thing I ever did. And since then, obviously, I'm known as the Evergreen person online. And it just really does help with that consistency. So if you're wanting that consistent flow of sales or clients coming in, it's a really, really good system to build, because it will support you in building that consistency, whatever that looks like. Whether you want that consistent flow of cash flow or of revenue coming in, or if you want to gradually grow, you can obviously gradually add in things as part of your ecosystem. But it's a really, really good thing to do. So if you are considering it and thinking, okay, is it actually going to work now though in 2026? 100%. And I think more and more people as well, with the whole landscape changing, with AI being introduced, etc. This is prime time, because what it means is you can really kind of lean into, yes, AI, but also systems and processes to make sure that it actually does work with you, or potentially elements of it for you. So actually it leans itself really nicely into Evergreen, because it means you can build a system that actually certain elements of it can be done by AI, certain elements of it can be done by your CRM system. So then you're actually doing a section of that yourself, and the other elements are built to work for you.
Yeah. And let's get this clear, because some of your evergreen isn't just buy a course online and do it yourself. Some of your evergreen is interaction with you at just a higher level. So you are still working with people, because people are craving the human element right now with the sort of AI thing coming in, the bots, the online courses. I think people are craving that connection piece. And so you actually do deliver some of your higher level stuff yourself, don't you?
Absolutely, yeah. So my entire business is evergreen, and all of my offers are evergreen as well. So they start literally from £22 at the bottom, which is one of my passive offers. I've got about 5 passive offers, which are very low ticket and introductory, up to about £200. And then I've got my core programs. I've got Unstoppable and I've got the Mastermind, but both of them are evergreen. So people can literally join any day.
Yeah.
Unstoppable, they can come in any single day. Mastermind, obviously, it's a little bit more dependent on numbers, because we only have maximum capacity. But as soon as a space becomes available, people can join it. And, it's a great opportunity for people. So there's no sort of cohort where you start on this date and end on this date. Again, it's completely opposite to the launch model, but it works well. And it's, I think my clients absolutely love it, because it's very bespoke, and we move with the time, we move with the industry. It's not week 1 we're doing this, week 2 we're doing this. If all of a sudden there is something massive on the news, or in the business industry that's changing that particular week, or the development of AI and X, Y, and Z's coming in, we will do a session on that, because it's got to stay relevant and we've got to keep up with that. And I think that's the key thing as well. Having programs, having courses, etc. We've got to make sure they're up to date, because otherwise people are going to get left behind and it's going to be outdated. So it's not going to it's not going to support the people that are inside that cohort.
Now, with an evergreen system, do you have to email your audience every day? Because I think this is the fear of some people, that they say, oh, I don't want to land in the inbox every day. Different ways to do it, isn't there?
Yeah, there's so many ways to do it. I don't think there's a right or wrong with emails. Email marketing is one of those things, isn't it? Again, I think people love it or hate it. For me, and again, I will absolutely transparently say what I do. I have 3 emails going out a week: on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Monday is my podcast email. So any guests, such as yourself, that's been on the podcast, that email goes out to all of my email list so that I'm promoting that podcast and that guest. So it's really important to me that that goes out. Wednesday is normally what I call either my nurture or my sales email. So depending on what I'm doing at that time, but it normally always leads to one of my core programs at the end. And then Friday is actually my storytelling email. So that's more about what I've been up to, what's worked, what's not worked, my lessons, my journey, etc. And that is a really good balance. I feel like 3 emails a week works so well for me in, personally. My clients do different things. Again, there's not really a right or a wrong. I've got some clients that do a newsletter once a month and then just one email a week. I've got other clients that are emailing, 3, 4, even 5 times a week. There isn't a right or wrong in my eyes. And I think it's more about finding that balance. And again, it comes up to the data. How many people open the emails? How many people are unsubscribing? What's the click rate? Let's really look at the data, because the data will tell us everything we need to know.
Yeah. And very similar to mine. Podcast email goes out on a Monday evening. Wednesday I sometimes send an email. I've got to get better at it. And then a Friday is my sort of story one, and it loads people up for the weekend, doesn't it? And I know people read it on a Saturday morning, which is great.
Yeah.
Occasionally I'll send an email over the weekend, but very rarely. Sometimes I might send us a Saturday morning or a Sunday one, but only if I've got something to say that I feel they need to know. And it's not always sales, but there's always click buttons at the bottom to allow that. I think I'm probably a hybrid. I think I've got some launch and some evergreen.
Yeah.
So I'm sort of sitting in the middle, but everybody's different. And I think you said something that's really key. You've got to find what works for you and what works for your audience and what you're selling. So it's not a one size fits all. You can have hybrids, you can have different things, but it's remembering an evergreen system doesn't mean you disappear. It
No.
means you've still got to be there. You've still got to communicate. You've still got to show up, because it's not a fully passive system. I mean, your lead magnets can be fully passive, but other than that, you've got to show up for your clients. People want you. They're buying into you as a person.
Yeah, and I think the key thing there is momentum. You've got to keep going. So even if you do evergreen in terms of the evergreen sales, you're not having to do like a live launch event and things like that. So that's great if you prefer not to do that, especially for people like myself, who's an introvert, who prefers much more to have that kind of consistent flow, and that, it just feels better and more aligned to me. But you've still got to have that momentum. You've still got to show up. You've still got to, I still talk to my audience like nearly every day on camera. I'll go live, I'll have conversations with other people, I'm always actively there. And that is, again, it's a really key thing to think of, because when you do go evergreen, you've got to think, well, how am I going to keep that momentum going? Not simply 365 days, as in you still need to show up 365 days. You don't have to do that, but you've still got to keep the momentum going throughout the whole year. So that's definitely one thing to consider that I think sometimes people don't consider. It's not just build a passive offer and you're going to make millions. It doesn't work like that, or at least it doesn't now. It's it is very much a case of just being aware. I think being really aware and understanding all of the different, business models and the types of way you can run a business. And there are people, I remember having a great conversation with Lisa about this, Lisa Johnson, and there are many people out there as well that do a little bit of a mix of both. And it works quite nicely, where you have maybe 2 launches or maybe just 1 launch a year, but then you've got evergreen ecosystem running as well, with some passive and semi-passive offers as well. So that can work really well if you like a little bit of a mix and you want to do like a big hype and momentum for like once or twice a year. You can have like multiple. There's, like I said, there's no right or wrong. I'm not anti-launching. I just know I've got a system that works for me, but it is so important that people go with what works for them.
Yeah. And I must admit, I'm not a challenger masterclass type person. I have 2 launches a year, from my big events. So I launch at both of those events, and that's it, and then it obviously online during the cart open. And then the rest of my stuff is more or less evergreen now, which is great. So I think I've got that hybrid mix, and you have to do what you enjoy. I tried doing a launch, and I did one, and I did enjoy it when I was in it. But it's when people start to drop off, and they do with every challenge. And masterclasses, people sign up but they don't turn up, and they just say they'll watch the replay but they don't, all that. And I'm just thinking, I can't, but it's such a lot of work. I'd rather channel my work into creating something that I can just have on tap, and people can just join as and when, or have conversations with people, and and lead them to what's right for them, really. So I think, yeah, it's not a one size fits all, definitely.
No. And actually, do you know what? You've said something really interesting there again about the conversation. So I feel in 2026 right now when we're recording this episode, and we touched on it earlier as well, people want nothing more than actually those connections with real people. Yes, there's AI bots, there's all sorts you can create, and so many automations now. But where my clients are really winning right now is through the conversations. We do an awful lot of lead generation, both inbound and outbound. But the lead generation and the conversations that people are having, and also the community building and the connections that you get through that, so many of my clients are winning and making so many sales through that method rather than having to do live launching kind of events and stuff, because again it can be exhausting, and I think people have less time now, don't they? Or at least they're not putting as much time into showing up for free events and live events and challenges
Yeah,
and things. So
yeah,
I do think that if people kind of just opened up a little bit more in terms of conversations and opportunities in front of them, or going to incredible events, like, and I know we're going to talk about the event very soon, but having, like, getting in the room or speaking to people, and if you don't like being in the room or going to loads and loads of events, pick a couple, pick some key ones that you can go to throughout the year, and also get yourself to some online events and just see what opportunities there are, because there is nothing more powerful than connection and communication.
yeah. And I run a membership, and we meet every month. And one of the things I've started doing in the membership is having this one-to-one connections at the start. And they have little conversations, but they're not allowed to talk about business.
Oh, I
And
like
it's amazing the connections that are then following on, and they're connecting further. But those light bulb moments, those synchronicities, those moments where they say, "Oh my God, me too. I do that," or the hobbies that are aligned. We're just finding out so much by not talking about. You wouldn't walk into an event and sort of what I call pitch slap somebody straight in the face. You'd have a bit of a conversation first. You get to know them. And I think we've forgotten how to do that in the online world. I think we've just, it's all this buy my stuff, buy my stuff. And I think, those connections are really, really important. So let's get on to the event, as you call it. So Woman Who Live and Awards 2026 is just around the corner at the time of recording. And you are one of my amazing sponsors. And my sponsorships, I call them sponsorship experiences, because you don't just sponsor and have like 10 or 15 minutes on the stage. You feature throughout the day. So you will be featuring on the panel in the morning, and then you will be featured delivering a keynote in the afternoon, and you will be presenting an award to one of our amazing winners as well. So you
Very
will be
exciting.
on and off that stage like a yo-yo, Kaylee. Um, but I didn't sell anything in that business for the first 5 years. People used to come up to me at the end of the event and say, "How can I work with you? Have you got a membership? Can I join?" And I say, "No, just come back next year." So naive, really. Because I was working, I had some non-exec positions, I was working in contracts, and it was a side hustle, really. So I wasn't looking to sell anything. But now my event, I've got 250 people in a room. I'd be a bit naive if I didn't tell them what they could buy. So I don't sell from stage as such, but obviously it's my event, so a lot of people do gravitate towards that. But I'm really excited that you're going to be on the panel in the morning, sharing some of your evergreen knowledge. And then in the afternoon, we're going to hear a little bit about your backstory as well. Um, but events for you. You had an amazing event where you decided you were going to have all your community come to Leicester Square. Tell us why you did that.
Oh, yeah, what an event. So last October, October 2025, I hosted a film premiere. So I had a film made, a documentary about my story. And I know we touched on the story very briefly earlier, but if you're coming to the event and the awards, I will be sharing a lot more in depth, and hopefully it's something that's very inspirational. But I had a documentary made about my story, and ultimately it was created to inspire and to motivate not just women in business, but women around the world, and also from young all the way from school right the way through. And it was so beautiful to bring together some of the most amazing women in my life, as well as the connections I've built along the way, into Leicester Square to premiere the film, but also to again show what is possible for us as women. I was Yeah, it was definitely a very proud moment and very surreal moment as well. But I absolutely loved it. And I feel like events are so powerful because you're bringing people together, you're celebrating whatever the theme is or the focus is for that event. And for me, that was to inspire. So I absolutely loved it.
People have asked me why I've kept my awards as a daytime event, but for me, it's a business awards. It's about business. It's not, coming along to an event and we don't sit there and we have entertainment and we have lunch and then we do award, 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 award. The awards happen throughout the afternoon. They trickle throughout the afternoon. And it's more about the speakers, the inspiration, but I've stripped back. I don't have any entertainment because of those conversations. I want people to connect with people. So we have breaks and we have networking opportunities all through the day. But it is a business event at the end of the day, and everybody is in the room. I don't think there's hardly anybody in the room that isn't in business. There might be the odd husband or partner that comes along, but it's predominantly about business, and I want to keep it like that because that's really important to me. And it's really important to me to have people that align with that and embrace it. And I have so many women that turn up on their own that are literally, they get really worried that they're not going to know anybody or that it's going to be cliquey. But people say they walk in alone and walk out with friends for life. So that sort of
That's so
touches me a
special.
little bit. So I'm glad that I've created that environment. So give us a teaser. What are you gonna sort of, what are they gonna get from hearing from you on stage?
So in terms of my keynote speech, so the talk that I'm going to be given, yes, I'm going to be giving a little bit more to my backstory, but ultimately this is again it's to inspire, it's to give people the self-belief that they can be and achieve whatever they want. And I think that's the key thing. I don't want to give too much away, but if you're coming to the incredible awards, which I'm so excited to meet so many fabulous people, but also you come prepared not only from me, but from everyone I'm sure who's speaking, who's there in the room to be inspired to connect and to actually believe what is possible because I think that's the biggest thing, isn't it? Self-belief is one of the key fundamental things that have been a massive part of my journey. And I really want to share more of that with the audience and to allow them to see what is possible for them.
Yeah. Well, Kaylee, sadly, we have run out of time. It's been fantastic talking to you. I always ask my guests to share a piece of wisdom, top tip, their mic drop moment with the audience. What would yours be?
So I think what mine would be, and potentially we've got the theme that's come through from today, obviously connected with Evergreen and business and all the things, but mine would be stay in your lane. There is so much noise out there right now. There is so much development in terms of the industry, technology, etc. And what we don't want is we don't want you to be distracted. We want you to stay in your lane and do the things that feel aligned, that light you up, that you're passionate about. Stay with that. Even if it's tough and it's challenging, it will work. And it's a case of having that self-belief, staying in your lane and knowing that you can.
Thank you, Kaylee. That's a wonderful note to finish on. Today, I've been chatting with Kaylee Greenacre. Thank you.
Thank you.